Good afternoon, you handsome lot. I've got behind me a 2015 Ford Fiesta 1 litre Ecoboost Zoomaroonie to start with, and this one, believe it or not, has travelled all the way from the Peak District for me to carry out this repair on this vehicle. So let's get involved. Now, first thing that we're going to do and get involved with is disconnecting the battery first up here, a little 8mm off the suspension tower there, and then we're going to jump around to the air conditioner. We're going to degas it, for the simple reason being I do like to take the aircon pump, especially off on these little Fiestas, because it gives you a lot more room. You don't have to, but it is something that I prefer to do. Right, let's get involved. Right, let's make a start on getting this cat off. To do that, we need to take a lot of the ancillaries off down the side of the engine, especially the air conditioning pump, because the cat comes past it and it is a little bit of a nightmare. Hence why I'm degassing the aircon, because we can get everything out of the way and it makes life just that little bit easier for us. I've gone ahead now and I have removed half of the intake stuff. Now, what I do like to do, because we've degassed the air conditioner, we need to remove the pump. These little bungs, these little stops, I like to put them in the ends of the aircon pipes. One there and one there. Simple reason being, as soon as you disconnect it, they're going to attract moisture. It could suck all that moisture back into the system. But if you put a bung in there, it's going to help it a tiny little bit, isn't it? You know, so yeah, that's what I like to do. Right, let's get the vehicle up in the air and get the AC pump off, if the bolts come undone. Right, well, now that vehicle is up in the air, we have, believe it or not, successfully removed the air conditioning pump. Now, it's when these bolts snap, it's normally this bottom one here, but they have all come undone. Perfect. We're just going to put this now in the nice little pile, keep it nice and neat, and now we can make a start on getting the heat shield off and removing the catalytic converter. Now, when I'm removing these downpipes, what I like to do, these bolts at the back here, they can't snap and round, so we like them snapping but we don't like them rounding. But what I'm going to do, centre pop them, I'm going to drill straight through and then they will snap. That's how I do it anyway. Right, well, after a couple of minutes now, I have drilled them bolts out that flange there. As you can see, the reason why I drill them, because it weakens them and they can round, it can be a nightmare. But the drill bits I use, I don't even know what make they are. They are absolutely stupidly strong. Stupidly strong. Is it Groundhog? Let's have a little look. You can't see it. You see it? Groundhog. Yeah, that's what make they are. Groundhog. Unbelievably sharp. Right, now that's off, we can drop the vehicle down and get the cat off. Right, now these manifold downpipe to turbo bolts, they can be a little bit of a nightmare and they can catch you out. 3 of them have come out, but unfortunately the one at the back there, can you see the threads? It has damaged them. So with that downpipe off, what we're going to have to do, it is salvageable, that stud, because it's still in there, it hasn't snapped. We're going to dress it up and we'll have to put a new nut back on it when we assemble it all back up. Right, let's get this cat off. 2 little 10s now on the heat shield at the back there and 1 on the block. And there you have it. With a little bit of magic, that cat is now off the vehicle. As you can see, I've got my lovely little receptacle and we're going to be draining the oil out, because before I want to get home, ideally I want the sump off and the rocker cover as well. Right, well, these rocker covers, they can be a little bit of a pain, especially that back bolt there. What happens is the water drips down and it corrodes it, and that one is looking not bad, to be honest, although there is signs of a little bit of corrosion there. But before we start getting everything undone, we're going to get ourselves an airline and blow all the debris from around there, because we don't want anything falling in the engine. You'd be surprised how much crap gets built up. Right, let's get these coil packs out with 6 8mm. Now, once them coil packs are out the way, we can go ahead now and remove the fuel rail. 3 T40s, remove the loom out of the way. Now, be careful when you're pulling it off, because these little green rubber O-rings on the top of the injectors, they can fall off like that. So please be extra careful with them. Right, there we go. That rocker cover is now off without any dramas or mishaps whatsoever. As you can see, inside that engine looks relatively good, and the timing belt looks in a relatively good condition as well. It does. Right, let's get up in the air and get this Sumperoonie off. Right, let's go ahead now, rather than me cutting it out, let's go ahead and get this sump off. All the bolts are still in it. I'm going to get our apron down, I'm going to spin around it. Shouldn't take us too long. All these bolts are different sizes, but I've done that many of them. Let me just swap my extension over because it is a little bit short, that one. That's better. Has anybody else, do you know when you're doing something like this, has anybody else got like a concentration gun? I have. Right, now all them bolts are out that from that little bit of wiring loom there, which you don't need to worry about. Just unclip it and I can get our pry bar and hopefully prise this Sumperoonie off. With that sump off, let's have a little look, see what this oil pickup is like. Now to me, that is looking like brand new in there, absolutely spotless. Right, well there we go. That is everything off, and it is now just gone, well, 25 past 4. And there we have it. A box of goodies. I got another one to do straight after this one as well. So yeah, we're going to be busy. Probably take us up to Saturday. Now, because on this engine we need to take the starter motor off to lock the crank, what I like to use, let me flip the camera around, is a couple of long extensions with a wobbly on it, come through the wheel arch, and you can get to that top nut. If you just put a little bit of an angle on your swivel head like that, you can, let me get the camera up there. Oh, you watch, it won't do it now. I've done no end of these, hang on. Let me get it set up. It will go up there and slot straight on that starter motor bolt, and we can get it backed off. Beautiful. And just like that, that alternator that is now. Starter motor is out of the way, and to be honest with you, I'm not really going to do any more to it because everything else is time consuming, and it is 20 to 5. So what I'm going to be doing is putting my tools away, ready for the morning. Well, we are now into the next day. Now let's get this engine timed up. We need to get a 21mm on the crank. Let me get my hand in there. Now that cam lobe there on that inlet, number 3, it needs to come up, let me show you, around about that sort of area there, so we can go ahead and get a timing toolkit, which is a laser 6952 Sumperoonie. Then we need to get the camshaft locking tool, and that should, look at that, look at that, you can tell I've done this before, can't you? That there now should sit on that lobe and bolt up against the cylinder head. Now before we lock it up, we're going to go underneath and lock the crank up. Right, now we're up in the air, we need to get the crankshaft locking pin, and it is this, it goes behind the dry shaft, slides through there, and it goes on against the crankshaft itself. Now whenever you're using these tools, I keep saying it in all my videos, make sure all the tools are tight. And then we can jump on a 21mm on the crank now, and that there, that engine is now lock solid. Now let's move around to the camshafts themselves. Put these locking tools on, and again, make sure they're nice and tight. Now, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and get yourself a marker pen, and you can put your own little marks on the camshaft pulleys and the camshaft carrier cap, so you know when you're installing everything back together that everything is lining up absolutely bang on. Right, now we're back up in the air, we need to get this crank bolt slackened off. Now, you have to lock the flywheel with that tool right by there. Now what I like to do, just for a little bit of reference for myself, mark the flywheel against the bell housing, so you know that if anything slips, you're not messing about. And also with a crank pulley, a little bit of yellow paint. I don't know if you can see it. A little bit of yellow paint on the block there. You've got to make sure that everything is tight and everything is aligned up. Otherwise this car's not going to run if you do put it back together. But these little reference marks are going to help you when you are assembling stuff. Now I have gone ahead and used the torque multiplier. I'm kind of getting fed up of the internet. Oh, you don't need to use this, you don't need to use that. I'm just trying to do it properly to show everybody. But yeah, we're going to plod on now and get this crank bolt off. Now if you want to start doing these Ecoboosts and you need a torque multiplier, if you go into my link tree in my bio, click the link and that'll take you straight to where one of these are available. And if you use a discount code BAZ10, you are going to get 10% off the purchase on them. And they are, these tools are there to make your life 10 times easier. Right, well with that crank pulley now removed, make sure that you put it to one side. Do not drop it because there is a pickup ring there, and you do not want to be damaging that. Oh, this car ain't starting. Right, let's make a move and get this timing cover off. Get yourself a little bit of cardboard and put the bolts in it, and you know exactly where everything's going, because they are different lengths and different sizes and God knows what. Keep them all nice and tidy. Right, well now after all those bolts are out, we have now removed the timing cover. We're going to get our pliers, take the tension off the tensioner. I'm going to remove that belt. Pretty much simple as that. Right, well in all fairness, that belt isn't in bad condition. Now bearing in mind that this car has only done 56,000 miles and there's hardly any delamination. Well yeah, there is quite a little bit of delamination on the belt going on inside there. Right, let's get down to the horrible part of doing a little bit of cleaning. Now during the cleaning process, now everything's nice and clean, just by here behind the timing belt there's a little 6mm grub screw that you take out, and there is a little filter behind there and that feeds the turbo. Just take it out and make sure that there's no bits in that wire gauze and it is nice and clean. Then we can just get it put back in. Right, now after everything's nice and clean, let's move round to the timing belt. Now you need to be just a little bit cautious when you're fitting these, because it is two different widths of belts, and if you're not careful you're going to be fitting the wrong one. Just get your little vernier, measure the width or compare the belts side by side before you install them. Right, well I've gone ahead now and we've put the new tensioner on, we've put the new belt on. Now as long as it's taut between these two pulleys at the top and it is nice and tight, the rest of it down here will look after itself, because once you pull that pin out of that tensioner, that camshaft pulley, crankshaft pulley should I say, is free floating and it will look after itself. You go ahead now and just pull the pin, that belt is perfectly tensioned. Let's move round now to probably the most critical part of this job, and that is applying the sealant, and the correct sealant to the timing cover. Now you need to make sure, let me spin it around, that cover is absolutely spotless. Now get the sealant. On these I do like to use the Ford stuff, it's not very expensive to be honest, and it is the right stuff. Now put at the end of the spout there, put a little V, so when you apply it you're getting a good beading of sealant. Right, let's get it on. A little bit like that, all the way around. Ah, it's perfect. Now also, I always like to put a new rubber O-ring in between the water jacket, between the timing cover and the block as well, and just manipulate some red rubber grease into it, so when you're putting it on, it's sliding into place. Absolutely beautiful. Now before you put these on, what a lot of people make a big mistake of is slapping them straight back on the engine straight away. Don't. We'll leave the sealant go off for a couple of minutes, let it get a bit of a skin on it, and then push it on. Right, now with that timing cover back on and torqued up to spec-a-rooney, we've got a brand new crankshaft oil seal to go back in it. Now in this laser timing tool, you do get the tool to push it back in, and then we're going to tap it back in now to that timing cover. Right, well now that crankshaft seal is back in, probably again another most important part of tightening this crank bolt up is a friction washer. If you don't put it on, that crankshaft pulley is going to spin. Now that, put it on there, nice, make sure it's nice and tight, there's no debris behind it. And if you can get that crank pulley back on and the torque multiplier bolted to the engine. Right, let's get this crank pulley on now. This does need timing up. Now, if we go back to our original marks that we put before we took it off, we can get them lined up. Perfect. And then there is a locking pin that goes in the pulley itself and into the timing cover. And that is bang on. Let's get this brand new bolt in. Right, now that crank bolt now is all torqued back up to spec. Now how I've done it, I'm going to have to read this. It's 25 newton meters, 70 newton meters without the multiplier. And then you remove your pin, but it doesn't matter, I like to keep it in. And then we've got 60 newton meters on the torque multiplier, and then 5 stages of 90 degrees on the multiplier. And I do mark it so I know exactly where everything's going. Now we can get this torque multiplier off and get this car built back up, and I've also got to put the sump on as well. Right, let's get this sump back on this vehicle. Now of course we need to make everything absolutely spotless. Plenty of sealant, and what I like to do is put a little blob there and there on the rear crankshaft seal, and again between the timing cover and the crank as well. And as you can see, with everything timed up and torqued up, my reference marks haven't even moved. Right, let's get this sump on and get it torqued up. Right, well we have soldiered on, we've got everything back together now. Air conditioning pump, alternator, cat back on, and I've also put new nuts and bolts through there, because I can guarantee you before long that flexi pipe is going to snap. Common fault in them. We've got everything pretty much back together now underneath. We can drop the car down and finish off. Right, well now I've got the vehicle back down to working out, we're going to go ahead now and get some oil put in it. And I like to do it this way. Just get it poured in and get everything covered for that first initial startup, and also get it straight on that belt as well. It goes against everything you say pouring oil on a rubber belt, it really does. Right, well I've just had a little minute now for me dinner, and what we're going to do, what time are we on? 20 past 2. Well, we're getting there. Now before I put the rocker cover on and build this engine back up completely, a little bit of sealant there, and on the camshaft caps as well. We're going to get this rocker cover back on. I'm not going to bore you any longer, get it all built back up, and we'll go for the first start. Once everything is back together, what we're going to be doing is leaving the coil packs unplugged. So we're going to get on the key and wind it over, let that oil pressure build up, and then we're going to come back, connect them, and get on that key and see if it runs. It's got 2 choices, it either does or it doesn't. Right, well I'll give it a wind over about 10-20 seconds, let that oil pressure build up. Now we have gone ahead and couple the coil packs back up. I'm going to need my little bar of Rudy now to put on the clutch pedal and see if it starts. Well, there we go, it is alive. Absolutely perfect. Right, well listen people, I am not going to bore you any longer. I've done enough jibber jabbering. The car is now back up and running. We've successfully changed the timing belt, make sure everything's nice and clean. I have got a few little plastic trims to put back on, but as you can see now, we're just having a look at some live data. while the engine's running and I'm finishing off. We've got engine coolant, engine speed, and the short-term and long-term fuel trim, making sure that everything, well, that engine is running perfectly and healthy. So yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed the video, and no doubt that I will see you again sometime soon. I have got, after this vehicle, another wet belt to do. I'm not going to do the video because it's just getting boring now, being repetitive. Nothing worse than being repetitive. But anyway, we will see you again soon, and let's get this in.